Guys, I couldn't sleep. I was going through social media. I didn't write anything down for the most part. This is off the top of my head, so if it's not necessarily perfect, forgive me. The point is still going to be pretty clear. I have a question. Why are you so enamored by the narratives that these parties push? Please explain that to me. I mean, for the most part, these guys push narratives that solve no problem, address no real issue, and for the most part, it's just used to give ammunition for the public to argue. The things that they bring up, for the most part, hide actual issues that are in our society. It hides actual defects that need to be addressed. The problem is that those defects would directly affect the people who are paying them to take those positions. It is not an uncontroversial opinion at all that for the most part, these parties are taking millions of dollars. And upon taking those millions of dollars, turn around and effect legislation to give those people a kickback for giving them those millions of dollars. Princeton has already shown that this country is an oligarchy. The things that the public wants show no relation to the legislation that the parties pass. Again, that is not a controversial opinion. And yet, the things that these people put out are still parroted by the public. The public still sends these guys money. I don't understand. I don't understand. And look, I don't even quite understand the contradictions. Like, I sit at the edge of the world, and I look out, and I see the conversations that are taking place. I see the things that people argue about. I see the narratives that they believe in, the unacknowledged biases that they function under, the ideas that they absolutely don't touch. They don't even engage the actual problems. For the most part, the narratives that the parties put out are the narratives that they just parrot and bounce back and forth. Nothing ever getting accomplished, and for the most part, just creating conflict without actually trying to solve any particular issue. What gimmick, what tool, what mental trick are you using to reconcile the contradictions between what these guys say, what these parties say they believe in, what the people that you say you support say and believe in, versus the things that they do that are a direct contradiction to those things? How do you get past that? What do you use to look at a situation and say, yes, this is a complete and direct contradiction between the things that these people say versus the things that these people are doing? And yet, it's fine. How do you give that a pass? How do you give a contradiction in your reality a pass? And why? Explain to me. Why don't you ask the pertinent question of, why is this contradiction here in the first place? That just seems to be the natural question to ask. I don't understand why that question isn't asked. You would have Democrats who are literally supposed to represent the 99%. The poor, the indigent, workers, the elderly. That is the basis of that party. That is the only reason that party is supposed to exist. And yet, this party, who's supposed to represent all of these groups, the 99%, found it perfectly okay to give 95% of the revenue, all the gains, to the top 1%. That is the opposite of the purpose of that party. How do you see that? And how do you reconcile what that party says they believe in versus the things that that party has done? How do you have a president that says hope and change? He gets in office and continues to murder civilians in the same way that Bush did. Continues to expand mass surveillance. Certainly, that is not hope. And that's definitely not change. How do you reconcile the same president who would, again, hope and change, but gets a list from Citigroup of the people that he should put in his office, and he puts the overwhelming majority of those people in his office? Hope and change. And yet the people that he's putting to run the economy are the people, for the most part, that crashed the economy in the first place. That does not look like change to me. Certainly you realize that is the opposite of change. How do you reconcile that contradiction with your support, with your beliefs, with you out here saying, oh, we just want Obama back? That's a fair and complete contradiction. Right now, for the last few weeks, or for the last few months, since Trump took office, the Democratic Party has essentially claimed to be the protector of whistleblowers in the press when Donald Trump has attacked the press. They were perfectly okay with Obama misusing and abusing the Espionage Act to lock up whistleblowers. This is amazing to me. The whistleblowers were showing illegal behavior by the U.S. government, were showing unethical and immoral behavior by the U.S. government, in one case murdering a bunch of reporters. How are you claiming to be the protector of whistleblowers when those whistleblowers in the press needed you, when Obama was literally attacking and intimidating the press? Where were you when that was taking place? For the party members who look at this and parrot these ideas and opinions, certainly that is a contradiction between what they are saying now versus what they were doing and saying back then. How does this contradiction not get the question of why is this a contradiction in the first place? Explain that to me. You have to explain that to me. How are you saying that this president is progressive? How are you saying that this particular party represents the interests of workers, the poor? Your president was pushing the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have literally, not hyperbole, made the United States subordinate to a foreign power of corporate interests. That is an amazing thing. So when you guys are saying that Trump is going to essentially rake the country blind, that he's going to pure kleptocracy, what was the TPP? That was literally giving up the U.S. sovereignty for multinational corporate interests. What am I missing? How does that contradiction fly? How do you square that particular contradiction between what this man said versus what this man was doing? And understand the ridiculousness, the irony. I would even make the point of the immorality of a situation where the first African American president takes steps to get a country that still has slave labor, changing that designation of that country so it can be within the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. That is an amazing thing to me. The same person said this was the most progressive trade deal in history. That doesn't mean anything. That's like saying we have a tall midget. That doesn't mean anything. Or a tall little person. The point I'm making to you is, how do you reconcile the things that you say you believe in, the people that you say you support, with the reality of the situation, the contradiction in your reality? Because both of those things can't be true. And why on earth isn't the question of, wait a minute, why does this contradiction exist? Why is this guy doing these things? Why is he saying one thing but doing something completely different in that office? Why does that just get a pass? Why does it just get a pass? Republicans, you're in the same boat. So yeah, don't clap. So you were extremely skeptical of Obama when Obama took office. You didn't buy that hope and change thing at all. We thought he was full of shit. Now, part of that just has to do with the guy who was running in a different party. Part of that was a genuine skepticism. You should be skeptical. But I don't quite understand how you can see brand Obama, literally a brand, just like a pair of jeans or soda, and brand Trump. Trump's name is literally a brand. It's a marketing item that he uses. How can you not recognize the same hope and change argument coded for the Republican Party? Hope and change. Make America great again. Those things are exactly the same. The only difference is the shade of the argument. Democrats and Republicans respond to things in different ways. Democrats tend to be more empathetic. Republicans tend to not give a shit about anything other than themselves. You may not like me saying, but that is perfectly true. So the argument that he's making to you is cut in that particular way to be specific to you. How can you not recognize the similarities between these things? So when the guy says, I'm going to drain the swamp, And then he takes millions of dollars and he puts those people in those positions. The people, the same people who gave him that millions of dollars, he put those people in those positions. How do you reconcile that? Certainly that's not draining the swamp. In the same way that Obama put all these people from Citigroup in his office, Donald Trump bashed Hillary Clinton for her Goldman Sachs ties. He gets in office and he puts those Goldman Sachs people in his administration. Certainly that's a contradiction. Certainly that's not draining the swamp. How on earth do you square those things? How do you not ask the question of, well, wait a minute. He said this, but now he's doing something completely different. When he says everybody's going to get health care, it's going to be awesome, it's going to be less in cost, everybody's going to get it. And then he tries to nix health care for 20-something million people. How do you square that? Why don't you ask the question of, well, wait a minute. Why is he doing that? I mean, he said one thing, now he's doing something completely different. Don't Republicans like clean air? Don't they like clean water? I don't quite understand how these things can go through things that are actually going to hurt you, your kids, your society. And you still support them. In lieu of that, in some cases, vocally arguing in favor of the things that he's trying to do that is going to actively hurt you. Why don't those contradictions matter to you in the same way those contradictions don't matter to the Democrats? Why? I don't understand this. This is fundamentally unnerving to me. It exasperates me. Again, like I said, I sit and I watch these things. And I see the arguments that these people parrot back and forth. At no point does the contradictions between what these guys are saying and what these guys are doing adequately impact the opinions that they have of these particular politicians. At no point. Again, it's not a controversial opinion that these guys take massive amounts of money in order to affect policy for their donors. That doesn't even put a dent in the opinions that they hold of these particular politicians. This blows me away. I don't quite understand why these things are okay. I don't understand how issues, real issues, nobody talks about, well, how do we deal with poverty? How do we deal with crime? How do we actually deal with income inequality? Off the table. Income inequality is worse than it's ever been in this country, going back even to the level of the Great Depression. A Democratic president that talks about social upliftment, social mobility, that talks about helping people essentially affirm themselves, to get a decent job, to get a decent wage. Again, under that backdrop, gave 95% of the wealth to the top 1%. The jobs that he bragged about, 95% of those jobs were part-time or contract. I am fundamentally missing how these things are supposed to help the demographic that he says he's supporting. I fundamentally don't understand how the TPP that was going to damage workers is somehow, I don't understand how he's allowed to make this argument that that the Democratic Party is for workers. These are contradictions. These are absolute contradictions. These contradictions exist in both parties. And in both situations, the people who are in these parties, meaning the average Joe, they parrot these opinions. They completely parrot these opinions. It amazes me. It fundamentally amazes me. I do not understand the narratives that you guys use to justify these things. I don't understand the gimmicks that you guys, the conceptual gimmicks that you use to reconcile the contradictions. Beyond that point, you had a Democratic president get in office, start murdering civilians by the thousands. You had a Republican president gets in office, murdering civilians. You have Democrats out here protesting, talking about the Muslim ban, and it is a gross Muslim ban, but at no point did those same Democrats bother themselves about the thousands of people, Muslims, that they right now so care about, were okay with Obama murdering. If I'm making this case that people absolutely hate but nobody has refuted, that Donald Trump and Obama are war criminals because they are, who gave them the constitutional authority to go into these countries to murder these people? Congress didn't do it. Is there some other body that I'm unaware of that gives the president this authority? Who gave the president authority, for the most part, to say that they don't need the judicial branch to make decisions? Obama put Eric Holder out there to make this argument. Due process under law does not necessarily require the judicial branch. The executive branch alone can make the determination on who they want to murder and when they want to murder them. That is an amazing statement. Donald Trump comes in and uses that same authority that doesn't exist. You may dislike me saying that, but certainly that's factually true. How do you look at that and square whatever you're thinking in regards to your particular candidate with the reality of the situation? He's functioning legally. If you're going to be a Constitution toter, certainly that is not in the Constitution. That is opposite of the Constitution. And yet, you still support these parties. I'm making a point to you that there is a such thing as saying, I support neither because both of them are fucking me over. Do you understand that the majority of people who voted for Trump were white? The majority of the people who voted for Hillary and all those guys were minorities. Right off the bat, that looks horrible. That looks absolutely horrible. Beyond that, the majority of the people who are on assistance, who needs welfare, who get handouts, all those type of things, are white. Meaning the people who Trump are going to hurt the most are the people who put him in that office. That's a contradiction. In no way does that contradiction affect the support that he has. And you would still have people toeing the line, talking about how awesome he is, how he's going to make America great again, how he's going to bring jobs back. Yet and still, the things that he's done in no way affect jobs. It does affect the money that he's going to give to those people who essentially help him get elected. But that has nothing to do with the people in the public. The point I'm making to you is, why are you supporting narratives that are against your interests, that don't solve problems, that allows these guys to parrot opinions, perspectives, that completely ignore the actual fundamental defects within our particular society? That's my question. That's what I'm asking. That's what I want to know. Please explain this to me. Please explain this to me. Over and over again, I've made this case that these guys are screwing you over. You're being fucked over and scammed. And over again, nevertheless, I still hear people parrot these opinions from these parties that have no interest at all. If Princeton is making this point, that what they do in that office shows no relevance to what the public wants, either party, that is not me saying it, that is the evidence to back it up. That is a contradiction in your reality. Can you look at that contradiction that is in your reality and honestly come to some objective opinion of, well, wait a minute, why am I supporting these guys? Why do I look at this contradiction and give that contradiction a pass? Why do I still say, yes, I want this person to do X, Y, Z, even though nothing that person is doing is showing that they are intending to do X, Y, Z? I agree with you that Trump did try to get some of that stuff passed, but the things that he tried to get passed had no bearing on you at all. Meaning, yes, he tried to do the wall, he tried to do the Muslim ban, but those things in no way directly affected his donors. Those things in no way actually affected jobs. I'm making the point that he was willing to push these things through insofar as they did not help anybody, insofar as they did not hurt his donors. In the same way that Obama was willing to push certain things through insofar as it did not hurt his donors. These guys are beholden to the same people. It is a duopoly. The person who pulls the strings are the plutocrats. The rich, the wealthy, the fat cats. The people who don't really give a shit about society, who just want their taxes lowered. Both parties. You are being scammed. And not just being scammed, you compound the scam with the indignity of following the line and towing these arguments of the scam. This is annoying to me. I get exasperated by this. I watch this stuff, and I watch these things that these people are saying, and they're utterly ridiculous. To bring this point home, and I'm going to end it here, but you have a situation where the Democratic Party has been screaming at the top of their lungs about Russia. Did Russia hack the election? Who the hell knows? Doesn't matter. Not one iota. We have like 10 issues dealing with our election system, dealing with flaws in the faultiness of our election system. We try to mask this over by saying, oh, we have the greatest elections in the world. That's a lie. That's a complete lie. It's contradicted by the reality of the problems in our particular elections. So why are they talking about Russia? Why are they talking about Russia? What does Russia have to do with any of these problems? It is not on the list in regards to the problems that we face. And yet, they assiduously talk about Russia. You have the Republican Party in this case. Did Trump get wiretapped by Obama? Who the hell knows? It is possible Obama was wiretapping the entire country, or at the very least had illegal surveillance over the entire country. Doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. It matters to what effect, to what degree, what does it change, what does it help, what does it affect, what does it make positive in your life? Nothing. Nothing at all. Neither one of these issues that these guys have been screaming at the top of their lungs about adversely affect their donors, nor does it in any way help you. If you're not putting a person in office in order to help you out, regardless of your political ideology, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or somewhere in between, then why are you putting them in that office? Why are you supporting their opinions? Why are you voting for them? Why are you towing the line? They're literally functioning in that office to fuck you over at the behest of their donors. Why? Do you look at that? Why do you see these contradictions? And just give it a pass. And I don't understand. I don't understand it. You should, at the very least, ask yourself, well, wait a minute. Why am I supporting these parties? Why am I so adamant that I like this particular person as opposed to this other particular person? Why? I know these guys are taking money to do this. I know these things are actual contradictions. These things are flat contradictions. Why am I so willing to give it a pass? Why does it not matter to me? Why doesn't the big issues like income inequality, poverty, environment, why don't these things matter? But the issues for their corporate interests do. You have this ridiculous situation where income inequality is worse than it's ever been, where Wall Street, for the most part, runs amok. And he's trying to take off tepid regulation that was put in order to restrain him. You have the other ridiculousness of a president talking about hope and change, getting millions of dollars from Wall Street, and then protecting Wall Street, even though they drain trillions of dollars from this particular economy. Explain these contradictions to me within the reality, or your particular reality. Defend these contradictions. That's what it boils down to. If you're going to say, yes, I still support these guys. Yes, I still support this party. Yes, I am towing the line for these two guys or these two particular parties. Fine. Explain those contradictions. Explain those contradictions. You should at least engage the subject, honestly. If you're going to toe those lines, if you're going to make those arguments, if you're going to engage in the ridiculousness that gets nothing done, nothing accomplished, doesn't even acknowledge actual issues that would tangibly affect people's lives, and that would tangibly and directly address the defects in our particular society, then you should at the very least acknowledge that you are engaging in ridiculousness, and that you are not trying to get anything done, and that you are being had by parties, for the most part, that are acting as public relations specialists for their donors. We have a one-party country. Neither one of those, or this particular duopoly, has no interest at doing anything that's going to adversely affect the money that's being stuffed in their pockets to parrot a particular opinion. If you can't see that, if you still acknowledge these contradictions and still feel the need to parrot the things that these parties are saying, it is amazing to me. Do you realize there is a such thing as saying, I disagree with both? There is nothing that requires you to take up any allegiance with any particular party. Nobody's forcing you to choose one or the other. Neither is an option. Neither is an option. So, yeah, the comment box is below. Have at it. Explain to me the contradictions. Explain to me why these contradictions don't matter. Explain to me why even with these contradictions, even though both of these parties actively engage in behaviors that hurt people, that hurt Americans, that these things don't matter. And that for the most part, you still parrot the opinions and perspectives of these two parties that has no interest at all in anything to move this society forward. They create divisions for a reason. It is not accidental that for the most part, whites line up in one party, minorities line up in the other. It is not accidental that that division exists in our society. Some of it is just by virtue of momentum. Some of it is absolutely intentional. And yes, the division that's in society is there for a particular reason. If you need to maintain status quo, the way you maintain status quo is political gridlock. If you love a particular system that is advantaging you and screwing over everybody else, gridlock is your best friend. Both parties. Not one or the other. Both. Explain. Explain. Guys, if you enjoy the content, this one is not necessarily made to enjoy the content. This one is made to ask a pertinent question that I fundamentally am in the dark over. I'm absolutely in the dark over. I don't get it at all. I have a difficult time relating to people in general. But this, particularly, baffles me. This baffles me. So please explain. If you guys like the content, again, feel free to like, share, all that good stuff. Also, I'm on Patreon at this point, so again, feel free. Have a good night. I look forward to your explanations. Thanks, guys.